Mom. I'm back." Countless cultivators looked on as Meng Li stepped forward and lifted Meng Hao to his feet. She looked at him for a moment, a flicker of pain in her eyes, and then pulled him into a warm embrace. It was at that point that a huge cheer rose up from planet South Heaven. In the hearts of the mountain and sea cultivators, Meng Hao was a supreme being. However, in the ninth mountain and sea, and especially among the cultivators on planet South Heaven, he was something beyond that. He was their Meng Hao. Meng Hao was back. Planet South Heaven was shaken, as was the entire ninth mountain and sea. In the following half-month, countless cultivators came to visit planet South Heaven in the hopes of meeting Meng Hao. As for Meng Hao, he did his best to meet with as many as he could. Although he was exhausted and only wished to rest, he couldn't disappoint the cultivators of the ninth mountain and sea. When Meng Li realized what a strain it was putting on him, she erupted like a thunderclap and refused to let any visitors through the front gate. Fa. Ing Xiufeng then began to stand in for Meng Hao to receive the guests, after which the crowds waned. At long last, Meng Hao had some personal time. He was able to spend some time with his mother and sister to truly enjoy the happiness of being with family. He did not meditate, nor did he practice cultivation. He didn't even leave the Fong clan to visit all the places he was familiar with on planet South Heaven. He stayed in the ancestral mansion, slowly, allowing his heart to grow calm. He was only now coming to realize that the way the cultivators of the mountain and sea realm viewed him had changed. Fan Donger and all the other chosen he knew treated him differently. Occasionally, even his father would look at him with a reverence in his eyes that had never been there before. It left Meng Hao feeling somewhat bitter and even sad. And then there was his sister. When they were both young, she had promised that she would always protect him. And yet, she had also changed. She loved him more than ever, but when she looked at him, he could see the awe in her eyes. 1. There almost wasn't a need to even mention Sun Hai. He had long since come to revere Meng Hao, but now, he looked at him, not just with reverence, but with fanatical zealotry. His mother was the only one who didn't seem to have changed. To her, it didn't matter what realm Meng Hao was in. Even if he was a paragon, he would always be her son. As he spent time with his family, he would sometimes look off into the distance, where he knew Su Qing was. Occasionally, he would ponder the matter of Chu Yuyan's soul. As for everyone else he knew, it wasn't that he didn't want to see them. Rather, in this moment of incredible crisis for the mountain and sea realm, he simply didn't have the mental energy to think about too many things at one time. Meng Hao got the feeling that he was changing. He was becoming quieter, and even spirit stones somehow didn't seem as important to him as they had in the past. Now, his thoughts were occupied more and more by the mountain and sea realm. If I could have my way, he thought, I would live in an era in which there was no war. Sighing, he felt more tired than ever. Another half-month passed. The mountain and sea realm siege mode was completely activated. The first mountain and sea was at the apex, with the first sea being in the highest position, followed by the first mountain. After that was the second sea, and the second mountain. The entire mountain and sea realm had risen up like a giant that propped up heaven and earth. The sun and moon no longer orbited around the realm, but were motionless in guard positions on either side. Although that left certain parts of the mountain and sea realm in perpetual day, and other parts in perpetual night, in this critical moment, that wasn't something that people worried about. At the same time, the vast numbers of mortals who lived in the mountain and sea realm had been transported to the ninth MO. Untain and sea, which was now the most important place in the entire realm. In the instant that the mountain and sea realm siege mode was completely activated, the will of the mountain and sea realm spoke out into the minds of all cultivators, seemingly emotionless. My interference with the 32 heavens cannot be maintained for much longer. In a month and a half they will come. 1. Fong Yu was first described as promising to protect Meng Hao in chapter 800, and those words were repeated in the following chapter. Chapter 1353. I demand an explanation. The voice echoed out into the minds of all of the cultivators in the mountain and sea realm, and regardless of what they were doing, they stopped in place. The entire realm went silent. Soon, eyes began to shine with the desire to fight. The bewilderment and fear that had existed in those eyes were now replaced by a brilliant glow that reflected their spirits. Although they maintained their silence, they went back to whatever important tasks they had been working on with renewed haste. In accord with the requirements of Paragon Sea Dream and the Mountain and Sea Lords, the first mountain became the first line of defense. Furthermore, innumerable spell formations and restrictive spells were set up until the entire place was like a gigantic restrictive spell formation. As for the denizens of the First Sea, they were also part of the war and their survival was also on the line, so they held nothing back in their preparations. Each successive mountain and sea was an additional line of defense, after 8 of which was the nucleus, the headquarters of the entire mountain and sea realm. As the mountain and sea realm prepared for war, Meng Hao sat cross-legged in the Fong clan ancestral mansion. Another half-month passed before he chose to leave. There was someone he wished to see on planet South Heaven as well as someone on the ninth mountain. The first person was Shui Donglu. He had recently learned from his grandpa Meng that Shui Donglu was the outsider he had known of for some time. After thinking about everything that had happened throughout the years and putting many pieces of the puzzle together, Meng Hao was increasingly certain that there was more to Shui Donglu than met the eye. In fact, he even had the feeling that there was some monumental secret connected to Shui Donglu, a secret that perhaps had something to do with the entire mountain and sea realm. Shui Donglu used a single sentence to get my grandfather to become the lord of the 8th mountain and sea. Just who exactly is he? According to what Grandma Meng said, my grandpa Fong isn't in the mountain and sea realm. Could it be that he's in? Meng Hao looked up. His gaze seemed to pass through all 8 lines of defense, out into the starry sky, to the 32 heavens. During his more than 1 month on planet South Heaven, Meng Hao had frequently sent divine sense out to cover planet South Heaven in search of Shui Donglu. He was certain that Shui Donglu was there, somewhere. However, he hadn't been able to turn up even the slightest clue about his actual location. In the end, he sighed. Trusting in his own senses, but having no other recourse, he bid farewell to his parents and everyone else. Upon leaving, he hovered just outside of planet South Heaven and looked back down. Don't want to see me, huh? Meng Hao said coolly. In that same moment, back down on a high mountain peak on planet South Heaven, Shui Donglu was looking up into the sky at Meng Hao. Apparently, he could see Meng Hao, but Meng Hao couldn't see him. Meng Hao hovered there for some time before his eyes glittered. He quickly blinked his left eye 9 times in a row, causing his view of the world to change and magnify. Soon he could see all of the lands below in complete detail. Suddenly, he vanished. Shockingly, when he appeared, he was standing on the mountain peak directly in front of Shui Donglu. Shui Donglu didn't move a muscle, although a look of surprise could be seen in his eyes as he looked at Meng Hao. Except, Meng Hao could see nothing in front of him at all. He got a very strange feeling from this mountain, as if it were somehow connected by karma to Shui Donglu. After standing there silently for a moment, Meng Hao suddenly smiled in a relaxed fashion. Finally giving up on the idea of tracking down Shui Donglu, he clasped hands and bowed deeply to the air in front of him. Senior, since you don't wish to meet with me, then I'll take my leave. I will never forget the kindness you have shown me. I'm not sure what your plan is, Senior, but the mountain and sea realm is weak now, so please don't play with fire and get burned. The words he spoke were icy, and a bitter coldness emanated from him. Even the paragon puppet up in the starry sky radiated a coldness that seemed to lock down onto that mountaintop. With that, Meng Hao looked up and made his way out into the void, paying the mountain no more heed. There, he transformed into a beam of light that left planet South Heaven. As he made his way off, Shui Donglu continued to stand there, and a flicker of praise could be seen in his eyes. After a moment passed, he smiled. So, kid, he murmured, his smile deepening, you've finally grown some teeth too, I see. You know what it means to protect your home. Excellent. Excellent. As for the mountain and sea realm, let's just say, I care about it more than you do. More than anyone. Outside of planet South Heaven, Meng Hao proceeded along through the starry sky. Throughout the 9th mountain and sea, cultivators were crafting planets and landmasses in numerous locations, filling the starry sky. Gathered upon those planets and landmasses were all of the mortals of the mountain and sea realm, and all of the bloodlines of all the cultivators. There was only one mountain and sea lord here, though, and that was Tian. Paragon's sea dream had persona. LOI come to visit him and appoint him as guardian of the place. Meng Hao looked out at this vastly changed 9th mountain and sea, and eventually, his gaze came to rest upon a certain mountain. The 9th mountain. Meng Hao wanted to meet a certain person and put an end to the karma which tied them together. That person was none other than Tian. Tian had interfered when Fong Xiufeng stepped into the Tao and had attempted to possess Meng Hao in the 8th mountain and sea. Because of things such as these, the karma between them was varied and strong. Meng Hao proceeded through the starry sky toward the 9th mountain, then began to walk up the steps leading to the peak. Soon he was there, at the highest part of the mountain. He saw a celestial pond, within which was a sleeping Xuanwu turtle. Sitting cross-legged next to the pond was an old man in a violet robe. His eyes were somewhat clouded, and yet bright, and boundless karma was visible upon his person. In the instant in which Meng Hao saw him, he knew that this was the man he had come to see. Tian. He was a former subordinate of Lord Li, a powerful expert from the same era as the first-generation patriarch of the Fong clan. He was also the lord of the 9th mountain and sea. Tian was not alone. A young man and a young woman stood behind him. Meng Hao was unfamiliar with the man, having never seen him before, but could see that he had an extraordinary cultivation base in the mid-ancient realm. When he looked at Meng Hao, the awe in his eyes was evident, and although he was apparently trying to hold back from revealing it, Meng Hao could see it clearly. As soon as Meng Hao laid eyes on the young woman, he recognized her. It was Ji-in, and as soon as she saw him, a complex look could be seen in her eyes, and her expression darkened. 1. Ji Tian's expression was the same as ever when he looked up at Meng Hao. It was almost as if he considered him to be an old friend. He smiled, and in a casual tone said, "You've come." Meng